Did your family upbringing or your family structure
Yeah.
influence your views on marriage or on interpersonal relationships?
Yeah. I mean, in good ways and bad ways.
Yeah.
So in a good way, my father was a very hardworking, straight commission salesman. He had a severe issue with alcohol. He's been sober now for 10 years, but he, at the time, had a real issue with alcohol. And my mother was a stay-at-home mother. And what I will say is they did a phenomenal job, both of them, of demonstrating that people could do different things in the ecosystem of a family
Okay.
and have equal value. So like my father worked very hard outside the home, and my mother was always reminding us of how fortunate we were that my dad worked so hard and that he made sure we had the things we needed as a family. Even though we were not, we always struggled financially, it was always a feeling of like, hey, we've got a roof over our heads, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And we have food on the table. It may not be the most posh food, and you can't afford to buy things at the toy store. We get things at the library because they're free, but you can't buy things at the toy store. And I just remember feeling like, okay, my mom was constantly cheering for my father and saying to us, your dad's such a hard worker. We should all be so proud of him. My father never said my mother didn't work. My father was always like, did you thank your mom for making this beautiful dinner for us? Did you thank your mom for da-da-da? And it was always, yeah, your mom works just as hard as I do, but her job is running this family in this house, and my job is to go out and make money. And I remember like that was a great gift they gave me, because when I started to see how people belittle each other's roles I had never experienced that. I had never seen that in my household. My father was always talking about how hard my mother worked, and my mother was always talking about how hard my father worked. Neither of them were ever trying to talk about how hard they worked. They were always complimenting the other.
Right.
And that was a real benefit to me. And I think it taught me a lot about what you don't want in a relationship. Is you don't want someone who's so focused on themselves and what they're bringing to the table, rather than saying, hey, I'm part of this structure and I want to be grateful to the people on my team.
Yeah.
And that taught me a lot about running a team. It taught me a lot about being part of a family and the ecosystem of a home or a business or anything else. The downside of my upbringing was having an alcoholic father. I think it gave me, again, to my benefit, tremendous control issues, like tremendous, because when you're a kid and you have an alcoholic parent, everything feels out of control all the time and terrifying, because you don't know what parent you're coming home to. Are you coming home to a like severely intoxicated parent who's like in the garage throwing things? Or are you coming home to like the like gregarious happy drunk who's like, yeah, I love you so much? Or like the person who's sober and angry.
Right.
And so I think that it gave me a lot of the classic adult child of alcoholic traits, which have served me really well in my profession. I mean, there are some professions where that which would normally be vice is virtue. Like that which would be, you know, like a person being unbelievably like risk tolerant.
Right.
In a lot of aspects of life, that's really bad. But like a lot of the hedge fund guys I represent, that's
well.
their superpower. And it served them incredibly well. And so I look at the plays they make and I go, Jesus, you staked all of that. But you know, when it pays off, it pays off. And sometimes these guys will take hits that I go, I would have jumped off a building. And they're like, no, sometimes you're gonna take a hit, but sometimes you're gonna knock it out of the park.
Because they know the feeling of what it is to knock it out of the park.
But representing them in their divorces, that same lack of risk adversity becomes shocking, because they're just constantly calculating the risk. And especially like quant guys, because they'll sit there and really like put numbers on the risk, and they'll look at it and go, well, if the cost of your services is going to be this and the potential was this, then I think it's probably worth it for me to do. And you kind of go like, oh my God, like you're making decisions about how you're going to handle the custody aspects of your case based on like the same quant theory and hedging that you're using for a portfolio.
It's sick. It's sick. It really is sick.
Yeah.
And do you think, well, one observation, it seems like there was a large amount of respect between your parents.
Yeah.
So you learned that just to have respect
100%.
for your partners in all aspects.
No, there was never
team.
like belittling each other. There was never insulting each other. There was none of that. They didn't have a perfect marriage, but they were married for over 50 years till my mom passed away. And they had a real partnership in that sense. Yeah.
And do you think that love was presented as practical, romanticized, complicated, growing up to see this?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
It was practical. It was a partnership. It was like, you know, two people running a business together, and the business was our family. It was romantic. I remember my parents going out on dates occasionally together and being dressed up. I remember the scent of Shalimar perfume and Aramis cologne, and the combination of those two meant my parents were going on a date. And I remember the way she would get a babysitter for us, my mom. And I remember I would be excited they would go out on dates because she would buy a Hungry Man frozen dinner. And I got to eat a Hungry Man frozen, because my mom always made like, very practical
delicious
things. But I just remember I would get the fried chicken Hungry Man dinner. And I was like, oh, you go wherever you want, guys. Go, get out. I got this dinner with the brownie and I was so excited. And I remember they really liked each other. They really had a long period of time where, I understood that there was something between them.
Right.
That I didn't quite understand as a young person, but eventually I understood to be love. They met when they were, they were on. My dad was on Fleet Week. He was in the Naval Academy. My mom was a nurse in Brooklyn, and they met at a bar in Brooklyn on Fleet Week. And
good old classic days.
Yeah, yeah.
Before now you just
drunk.
swiping.
He went up to her and he said, "I think I'm going to marry you." And she was with a bunch of her girlfriends in their nurse outfits, and he was in his uniform. And she said, well, with the uniform, I assume you're in the military. Which country? And he said, whichever one you're from.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And he invited her to come visit him at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. And she came, but he had invited 3 other women because he didn't think any of them would come. So he wanted to hedge, and he'd invited. And she got there, and 2 of the others had shown up. And she said, I'm leaving unless they leave. And he liked her enough that he was like, he asked the other 2 to leave. And,
all right, nice.
And that was the rest was history. But yeah, they were kids when they got together, and in a way that nobody would really anymore.
And do you think, like, observing that the relationship with your parents and along with all the divorces that you've litigated, has that shaped your empathy or your realism when it comes to like relationships and marriage?
I think both. I think empathy and realism. I think marriage is all of those things we just described. There's a practical, pragmatic, relational aspect to it. There's a romantic aspect to it. There's a sexual aspect to it. There is a co-parenting aspect to it. And I think it definitely has to be all of those things. And I think I relate to love and marriage with a mix of the magic of it and sort of understanding that there's something supernatural about love, but also pragmatism and also, tremendous empathy for the fact that we're human and it's hard. Like it's hard to do the right thing. We feel what we feel. Sometimes we wish we could feel differently, but we feel what we feel.
Right.
I think desire is tricky. I think everybody if they could control their desires, it would be great, but you can't. Your desire is your desire.
Yeah.